Welcome back to the We Valiant Few podcast. I'd like to introduce everyone that's on today. We have
Blackbeard,
Slapshot,
Crossfire, and Skyscraper.
Today we will be continuing our last discussion with the Second Amendment. So, Second Amendment Part 2, go.
So, just to reiterate the Second Amendment for everybody, the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Furthermore, the 2A was intended to protect gun ownership of all able-bodied men so that they could participate in the militia to keep peace and defend the country if needed. So I'd like to gather some thoughts on militias. We lightly talked about it last episode, and I think we should dive deeper into what a militia really is, how to really form one legally, what they mean, stuff like that.
Well, first off, what do you define as an able-bodied militia?
Well, able-bodied person that is capable of being in it, and as defined by one of the court cases bringing up the Second Amendment. I can't bring it up off the top of my head, but they defined it as a 18 to 40-year-old male. Some state constitutions say female as well and have like different age groups, but generally you have to be 18 to buy a firearm, so that would generally, or join the military for that instance. So that would generally be where you would be able to, and then up until wherever your body starts to decay, your prime is kind of gone.
Yeah, militias, I would say any group of people or one person wants to set up, basically it's like you just get a group of people together, understand the Constitution and its laws, the laws of your state and the country, and know where your rights begin, other people's rights begin, in terms of yours. Gather, train, and pretty much just
be well regulated.
Yeah, just be organized and steadfast, for whatever may come.
Well, the reason, so a good question I think is, why militias? Why can't we just have a standing army? Why is the militia important? And I would argue that the militia is important because it enables, like we talked about last episode with the monopoly of violence, it enables the people to organize, train, and go through stuff like that would potentially allow them to protect themselves in the instance that maybe we're invaded, or maybe the militia doesn't do anything like firearm related. They go and help communities and pick up trash, and it's honestly I think the militia nowadays could be more similar to a non-profit or a youth group maybe with guns, obviously. But
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most modern day militias are non-profits.
Yeah, most are non-profit.
I think they're set up like that.
Yeah, they're set up as non-profit organizations, and
that's just from a taxing standpoint. But but even nowadays, their actions still really kind of fall towards I'd say they're more aligned with a charitable organization than that of a for-profit corporation.
It's like a service. It's it's like a
community service.
Yeah, community service, mutual aid. Something of that nature where if you have unrest in your city, your town, they can provide aid to businesses or aid to the police or National Guard. Granted, you're going to stay out of their way, but
yeah, absolutely.
In the nitty gritty of things, if something were to really pop off, they're there.
They're there for you.
Yeah, for the people.
I think,
and that's the thing where they are there for the people, not for the government itself. It's for their communities. They protect them.
Right, and that leads to another portion of it, whereas the militia is a people-ran group, whereas the government is its own entity.
It runs the police.
Right.
Like your local government runs your local police. The state government runs your National Guard, and the federal government to a point. And then the federal government obviously runs like all of the enforcement branches of the executive, which would be like the ATF, FBI, CIA, the actual military, stuff like that. So the militia would be something that is completely run by the people rather than the federal government, which can, if the federal government could apply tyranny to the people, and that is the point of a militia.
That's what the Founding Fathers meant this as to begin with. And also, to keep in mind, if something like this, where a militia is really going to need to assemble for whatever reason, you also have, let's say the government is with the people, then we have the government. We all know how the government works. They take usually forever to do things and accomplish things. So it might take them some time to get National Guard soldiers around us to even help do whatever we might need help doing. Right? So the militia is there. They're ready. They can assemble whenever they need to at a moment's notice.
And they're they know usually a militia isn't going to come from across the state or across the country to help in an area, so it would be
right. They know local, their area.
Yeah, it's right. A local.
They are your friends. They're local, shop owners, business owners, workers. They're your friends, family potentially. They're people that you know. And that grants everybody a sense of comfortability of who they're dealing with.
Yeah, I want to caveat this too, because I think as people start to listen, a lot of people may not be from like an area that is, maybe they're in the super population dense area, and it's crazy to think that there's a group of people that are organizing and training and stuff like that. But if you look at it from the perspective of people that live out in the middle of nowhere, and they don't have like the same amenities, maybe one of the bigger things was civil unrest. If the police department isn't big enough to handle whatever civil unrest is showing up in their town,
like what we've seen personally before,
they to assist in that regard. But whenever we're talking, like, if you live in a big city, it's only weird because you make it weird. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, and honestly, if it's done more and right, it could provide a lot of good for the people around.
It could be an asset if you choose to let it be an asset, or if you can't handle the situation, which that goes on to situational awareness, and how you can you mitigate whatever is happening with the civil unrest. Like no matter what your viewpoint is on whatever's going on, a lot of these groups are not there to rile things up. They're there to protect local businesses, the people itself.
On that note, what about on August 25th, whenever Kyle Rittenhauer was defending a business or protecting a local business, and then he ended up shooting 2 people in Kenosha and wounding another. But they're trying to argue that he was acting in self-defense and is part of a militia group protected by the Second Amendment.
I think that's an extremely accurate way to describe it, because there are tons of videos of Kyle Rittenhouse on that day that it happened. There's supposedly video of him with a fire extinguisher running towards put out fire. He put out a message to one of the reporters before it happened, saying that he was just there to protect the business, make sure nothing crazy happens with the business, and also to provide medical support if needed. And he had the medical bag. I'm sure, I don't know how much training he had, but he was there with good intentions. And it's been proven that he isn't a white supremacist or anything like that. And militia groups aren't white supremacists. Second Amendment isn't white supremacist. It's there to protect people.
You will see that's what it all falls down to. Is these people are here and they're trying to just do what they feel is right to protect people, and they're vilified over it.
Yeah, they want to do, like, it may be the only way they know how to do something. And honestly, so on the topic of actual, like, events currently going on, there's a bunch of good people that are just there to protect people or to provide medical aid or stuff like that. But then there's also, like, people that instigate and try to scare people and stuff like that, and that's just not what you should do. You shouldn't instigate. You shouldn't try to cause more issues. If you want to go and do something like that, or you find yourself in that situation, you're
only making the problem worse. You're not
helping to find the solution or to mitigate the damage from whatever. Like, you don't want to create more damage. And in Kyle Rittenhouse's case, he was running away from these people that attacked him. He was attacked. He defended himself, and also, just because he is 17 doesn't mean he loses his right to defend himself. So, in my opinion, I think that the only thing that they can get him on is possessing a firearm under the age of 18.
Yeah, because if you watch the video, everything happened so fast. Like, could you? I mean, of course you have adrenaline and all that kicks in when that happens, but it happens so fast that, like, what do you want me to? Like, because it obviously looks like he thinks he's in danger. I mean, if there's people running after you, hitting you with stuff, the one dude hit him with a skateboard. And what else are you supposed to think? These people are using whatever they have at their disposal to literally try to kill you. You know?
Well, I watched a video on it, and there was a lawyer. He's a 2A guy, and he's a lawyer on top of that. And he kind of broke down the entire thing, like he walked through the entire video. And in the beginning, you see Kyle, talking with, this one gentleman, and they aggravated the entire situation by throwing what seemed to be in the crude video with, the footage is kind of crude in itself, the quality, but it seemed to be what people are saying, a Molotov cocktail, and then he got confronted between some cars, fired around after the gentleman was rushing him, and he kind of was back between two cars, so he kind of didn't have anywhere to go. Shot the dude in the head. That was the first gentleman that he had shot, and then proceeded to provide medical aid, trying to save him and telling people to call 911.
He didn't.
For that
he didn't provide medical aid.
He sat there and kneeled down.
He did kneel down. He
but then the other guy started rushing him almost.
And the whole crowd was like, "That guy just shot some dude, get him!" And then you go to the video where he's running down the road, and I think that video is more telling of his actual intent, because you saw
he's trying to run. He's trying to run to get out of the situation. Yeah,
he fell. So now he has nowhere to go. He can't get up because these guys are literally right on top of him. The first guy comes in, he shoots him, he falls over.
He had
another guy.
One guy had a skateboard and the one had a Glock.
Yeah, the third guy that shows up with a Glock, he ran over. The first guy reached for the gun, or the two of them that got shot and fatally died, tried to reach for the gun. The third guy ran up to him, put his hands up, and he had a Glock in his hand. And then he tried to grab the rifle, and that's whenever he got shot in the arm. But there was a fourth dude that actually showed up behind the third guy, and Kyle was getting up. He pointed the weapon at him, but the guy put his hands up and backed off, and he didn't pull the trigger. So you could definitely tell that he was showing
aware of the situation.
With all the adrenaline pumping, all the understanding of whatever just happened, he was still able to show restraint composure and restraint when necessary. So I think that's very telling of his intention. I don't think he went there intending on shooting anyone.
Absolutely not. And I think it's also worth mentioning that it's a really, really tough spot, because you have officers that can get into similar situations like this where it's either life or death, and a lot of people criticize these people for making the decisions that they made, but if you were in that very same decision, how do you think you would react? You might say one thing, but in the heat of the moment, you might do another.
Because at the end of the day...
Almost guaranteed to do another, yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, really, it's fight or flight. And it's their life versus yours. In terms of, like, a life or death situation like that, where firearms are involved, like, really, what are you going to do? Like, I understand that everybody has a family to go home to, and you have to think about that when using a firearm in that instance, but...
Whenever your
really,
life is put in danger.
Whenever you're pushed to that brink of, okay, I might die... You have to make a decision in nanoseconds. And that's where the gray area is, where there's a lot of people that can speculate, oh, I would do this, I would do that, but really, we're not in their shoes.
No.
Like, how can you sit there and say that, I would do this or that, or he should have done this, when the adrenaline, the commotion, like, there's so many emotions and actions going on at once. How do you control all that?
I guarantee you that whole time, the whole time going through his head, he was thinking that he could die, like, right then and there.
Well, of course, if you were in the same situation, you'd be thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I know I would.
Yeah.
And also, like, he's probably sitting there thinking, I just killed a man. Or, possibly killed a man. Like,
well,
the weight that gets put on your shoulders of performing that action... You cannot tell me that you don't feel any, sort of like pity for somebody that you even had to pull the trigger on.
Well, that probably explains why he went over and kneeled down to the first guy. He's probably like, oh my god, what just happened is that, and then the whole crowd comes, and then it's more so fight or flight kicks in.
Yeah.
And then,
he tried flight, it didn't work, and then he had to fight.
And that's where the whole legality part of this goes, where whenever he fell and tripped onto the ground, where he had no exit.
Right.
If you're on the ground, there's no exit. So that's where the legal side of this is where he's protected. Yeah, he shouldn't have had that firearm being at the age that he was, but the right to defend yourself knows no age.
Yeah, so that was a point I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw this corkscrew in with you guys. Did you know that all 50 states prohibit and restrict private militia groups and militia activity within several different kind of laws, as well as provisions including in most state constitutions? So he shouldn't have been there to begin with, so why were they there protecting the business?
He wasn't technically in an organized militia, and what are these laws that control militias?
I haven't heard of them.
Well, so
I mean, obviously there are laws that regulate militias. And if someone could pull it up,
well, there's registered militias and there's unregistered militias, and I think the stuff he's talking about is unregistered militias.
And it may not even be militias; it may just be concerned citizens showing up to protect a business of a family member or something else like that. Like, it's not cut and dry. It's not always cut and dry. And if for instance you are just training on your own with a group of friends, are you a militia?
I think intent matters, with at least in that particular scope of things. I mean, I personally believe that you should be able to defend yourself. I think that's a God-given right, and there's not really any government that should take that away from you. But I think if your intent is to go out, and like I think framing matters too. Let me step back a second. So I think, like, if your intent is to be there to protect people, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there's people that, do it for malicious activity, not in a malicious sense, but like in a bad sense, And I think that there's that line that intent matters.
And I think also that a lot of people kind of do it for, as horrible as to say, maybe not for the proper, reasoning, on the other side of that, these people going out there, in these groups or militias, are they, if they're not going out there, with, the great intent, there's another side of this. They could be going out there strictly for the glory, just trying to get publicity for themselves and make themselves look, trying to be cool. Something. Like, like the fad thing now is like, like the boog boy, wearing the blue owl shirt, walking around with a gun, thinking you're cool, and you're just flexing, trying to, maybe not intentional, like going out there and like saying anything, but you just walking around carrying a gun, and then just staring people, you look at somebody in the eyes, and you're carrying a gun, like,
what do you expect from them?
Yeah, you're intimidating, like, and that's not what you want to do either. You want to go out there, you want to talk with people, understand, why
they're there, and tell them why you're there.
Why they're there.
So that's a good transition point from Kyle's situation to what you should do if you're in an unsettling protest situation, unruly event. So
if you find yourself in one of those situations and you've never dealt with or done anything, any kind of training that would lead you to have any reason to be there, then leave. If you have no reason to be there, then avoid the area at all times. Stay safe, keep your family safe, all that. Stay out if you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. If you are a person that wants to be involved in a positive manner and not go out there and be an idiot like the Boogaloo people or stuff like that, who are not principled, they don't base their ideas on anything, those people should stay out. But if you do find yourself in that situation and you want to do something, some stuff that you should consider is the first one I would say is learn how to de-escalate, or to have it not escalate at all. Like, talk to people, like Blackbeard said. Get to know them, talk to them, understand their grievances and why they're protesting, and just talk to them if they'll talk to you, and then tell them why you're there. And hopefully you're not there to do anything dumb or like incite any kind of stuff. You are literally just there to protect your rights, to protect the people around you so no one else get hurt and stuff like that.
You're there to give them, say, you're out there and you are with one of these groups. What these people want is an audience. They want somebody to hear what they're saying. Go out there, like he said, like Raptor said, you go out there, you listen to what they're saying, what their grievances are, what their problem is. Try and talk to them. Find a solution.
Yeah,
tell
about
them
the
that,
solutions.
Yeah, try and talk about solutions, because you are obviously are on the opposite side of what they're there for. So the only way you're going to come together and figure anything out is if you can talk.
And we talked a lot about that in the first podcast about the First Amendment. Is a lot of people have lost the way of like respectful discourse and talking to each other, and maybe those like one-on-one interactions that you have with them, if you find yourself in that situation, can maybe shed some light on them, shed some light on yourself, and everyone gains a lot from that situation.
Let's look at it from a modern day perspective, where we're seeing a lot of unruly protests based upon the BLM movement, the recent, obviously the election coming up. So when you see these unruly protesters and you're kind of in the heat of the moment near them, maybe talking to a few of them, like understanding their perspective. At the end of the day, we're all Americans, right? So if you guys can all come together and understand that we all live in the same society as one another, what's the point?
And we all want the same thing.
Everybody wants the same thing. It's how everybody wants to get there, and everybody has the same end goal. It's just how they want to get there.
See, I don't even know about that anymore. Like, I think if you take like what we would consider as reasonable people, sometimes they have the difference on how to get there. Like we talked last time, we all like that in the reasonable group. There are main goals that we all want, like national security, etc., that everybody agrees on. But I think that group of people doesn't encompass it. I think a lot of these groups we're seeing riot and whatnot. I
hold up. Mostly peaceful protests.
Oh yeah.
Mostly peaceful protests.
Yeah, the mostly peaceful protesters. I think that a lot of them do not want the same thing that we want.
I think what goes into that is, they're not educated on what they're doing or why they're there.
Yeah,
they are just going there because a friend is going there, and then a friend of a friend is going there, and they're going there because it's the thing to do. Because people right now, there are a lot of people without jobs because of this virus, and people are bored.
I love watching the videos of the reporters going up to people and asking them, are you going to be attending this protest this evening? They're like, no, we're going to riot. Why are you going to riot? I want a free TV. Great. You're going to go riot and loot a business because you want a free TV.
You have a lot of people. There's a lot of different kinds of people that shows up to the protests. You've got the armed people that are there have good intentions. You have armed people that are there for clout and bad intentions. Yeah. You've got protesters that are literally just there to peacefully protest and get their ideas out. Then you have rioters who are there they don't really care about what's going on. They just want to have a reason to break stuff and attack people. And then you've got opportunists with like looting and
they show up with literal giant duffel bags.
Yeah, they show up with U-Hauls and duffel bags and all this, and they ransack the local Walmart or Target for no other reason than because they can and free stuff.
It's all taking advantage of the situation.
And it gets dangerous when you have a whole bunch of people together because that mob mentality really kicks in.
Yeah, it's a pack mentality.
Anything that you would normally do, like, whereas if you're by yourself and someone's like, oh, why would you do this? You're like, oh, absolutely not. But as soon as you get the mob mentality, that just kind of snaps and you just kind of go, I don't want to say feral, but...
No, as soon as you see 50 people doing something, you're like, oh, I want to do that too.
Because you can get away with it.
Yeah.
All right, you got how many cops for a municipality? Like on average, or for a local town, your average size town, you probably got 10, 15 cops
10, 15.
maybe. And how many of those are actually on duty at this point? If there's something were just to rise out of nowhere, it's not sanctioned or like organized. Say something, people just decide like, okay, I'm going to stand on the corner and we're going to start protesting, and then 10 people makes 20, and so forth. And then people just start showing up and all chaos breaks loose. And then people were there for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see like in our town, like just me knowing the numbers, it's realistically like 500 people to one officer.
Yeah, and that's uncontrollable.
That doesn't seem out of place. Though. It seems like a lot of places like that. Because, say if you're like a 500 people to one officer, if you have a town of, 10,000, that's 20 officers, or if you have a town of 20,000, that's 40 officers, like that gets, like, if you think, you're like 10,000 people is not that big of a town, and 20 officers seems pretty normal, so that's 500 to 1, and that's where a lot of the problems comes in, because, if you have 100 unruly people, 20 cops aren't going to be able to handle that.
And I think that's where the the militia sort of falls into this, where they can sort of not make any like arrests or anything, but sort of deter people from doing looting and destroying certain buildings and whatnot. Because a physical presence of that nature definitely deters people.
Being a third party.
You see somebody walking around with a gun. You're a protester. Most of them do not carry, to my knowledge, in my experience. Like, so they're gonna sit there and be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna veer away from this because I don't want to deal with that threat. I don't want to deal with the outcome that could possibly come of this.
An armed society is a polite society, and it all comes back around to that. But while we're talking about civil unrest, a couple of the other things that, again, if you find yourself in those situations and you have the necessary training to justify you being there, you want to de-escalate if you can. We talked about that, talking to them, getting to know their ideas, not cause any more issues than there already would be. Give people their space. If don't be in people's faces and like trying to, again, incite bad things to happen by trying to be like alpha or anything like that. Like, give people their space. Get medical training. Learn how to use a tourniquet. Learn how to help people if they are wounded in a positive manner. Get your CPR license. Go to a class that'll teach basic like gunshot wound helping or
trauma,
or to treat trauma.
Yeah, there are plenty of stop the bleed classes that exist. That's a government funded program that I believe is free to attend.
Yeah, they pop up all over the place.
Yeah, and a lot of even your local fire departments, they host a lot of these. I mean, I'm a firefighter. I'm a local firefighter, so I mean, a lot of your local departments will hold classes like this to where you can have an open invitation to where you can sign up and take a CPR class, and you learn more than just CPR. You're learning how to apply bandages, Heimlich maneuver, stuff for your very basic knowledge. And then, if you find yourself in these, civil unrest, either get out if you're not trained to be there, take some training classes on medical, train how to fight, because you may find yourself in that scenario where you're going to have to defend yourself hand to hand.
And be in the right mindset.
Yes, and the mindset.
Your mindset is huge.
Yes, you have to be in the right mindset. You have to sit there and think logically. You can't go in there and think like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You have to go with the mindset that de-escalation drills, run them, go through them with your friends. Work on that. Work on talking. People skills. Proper people skills and communication skills go a long way. And if you find yourself in a discussion and it starts to get heated, then just go your separate way. Let them have their opinion. You have yours, and then you just walk away, because the outcome is everybody goes home safe.
And that's it. That is what you want, because we don't want. At the end of the day, you don't want to hurt another human being. Some people do, but I know personally I don't want to hurt it, and I can pretty much say for everyone here, I don't think anyone else here wants to hurt anyone else. And yeah. So I think we can move on to something else from there.
Yeah, we put a lot of time and effort on that one.
We can.
I'd say probably the best thing to move on to is since we know. The current situation with the Second Amendment and some of the various things with that, I think it would be important to talk about where it comes from.
So the Second Amendment, a lot of people like to say that the Second Amendment was like a grand experiment, where the founding had no basis to give the people the Second Amendment, but they were just run it, send it. Send it. Do you have everyone guns and see what happens? No, that's not how any of that went. And the Second Amendment has a basis in history going back to basically the beginning of time and with defending yourself. Notably, if you look at feudal Europe or feudal England during the 1000 AD later, every the peasants were required to have a sword and X armor. The lords were required to have a weapon and X armor and enough armor to arm however many people that they are lords over. And then the king is supposed to have armor and whatever. So these people, civilizations and regular people, have been armed longer than standing armies have existed, because standing armies didn't really become popular until the late 1600s. Another thing, a lot of people in history like to talk about how the Englishmen and their longbow, and how Englishmen were great longbow archers with the longbow. They could pull it with a regular longbow with 120-pound draw weight, and that regular. So just to put it in perspective, regular compound bow archery, they don't really go anywhere higher.
Anywhere from 35 to 70 pounds.
Yeah. So and the compound bow has pulleys and levers that help you pull that stuff back, whereas a longbow is straight 120
pure mechanical
pound,
energy, yeah.
Pure mechanical energy. So they had, and in order to do that, they had to train, and they actually had days. I think it was one of the days on the weekend that you were required to train with your longbow. Regular civilians were required to train with their longbow once a day. They weren't allowed to play sports like soccer or stuff. They had to teach their kids how to use the longbow. And one of the bigger sayings that they said is, if you want to teach someone to be a great longbowsman, you have to start with their grandfather. And obviously today, like, firearms are much easier to understand and practice and use, but the same principle still applies. Train with your weapons, get to know them, understand their use, and understand what they can and can't do, and just get out there and get hands-on, so then you are confident with your stuff. And that's where the Second Amendment came from. Yeah, that's where the Second Amendment came from. It's from basically thousands of years of countries requiring their people to defend themselves from foreign invaders, as well as it gives the people a tool to protect themselves from people that wish to do them harm.
So I think that's just the fundamental concept, or the fundamental idea of where it came from. But I think in our particular case, for the Americans, the Second Amendment came from the fact that the Founding Fathers realized how important it was to them to have been able to acquire the firearms, and not only acquire them, but be able to use them in their sense of a tyrannical government. And they always wanted to ensure that the future generations would have the ability to defend themselves should that ever happen again, because history has a weird way of repeating itself. Yeah. So I think that's where they had tremendous foresight, seeing that, you know, the likelihood of something like that happening again. Since, I
mean, Jefferson said it.
What, that what, it would happen again?
Well, he said that he thought that the government should be remade every 20 to 30 years. Oh. And we've been going on the same government for
240
quite a while.
Yeah.
Which means that for a long time it's been working well, and working the way it's supposed to.
Well, the only downside with that is you're talking about longbows and single shot items. So that's what they were interpreting, in my opinion, by the Second Amendment, is that they using a single fire weapon. Now it's easily accessible to get one that shoots upwards of 30 to 15.
Yeah, but if the revolution happened today, so for instance, during the revolution, the firearms that the Minutemen and those used were their personal weapons
that they bought.
That they bought with their money. They weren't supplied with those. At least initially, they weren't supplied with weapons
until they started making their own.
Yeah. So
people joined their cause, and then, but before that, people were able to. I mean, people financed them. You know, because like the Founding Fathers weren't poor. You know, no. They all came from pretty high lineage, so they could buy these and equip people. But as things progressed, people started to side with them, and then, like you said, they effectively made their own because the company or that side was now supporting them. So
it makes no difference the usability of the weapon. The premise is still the same. The people should be able to arm themselves with whatever, and again, going back to the standing army thing, whatever the standing army has available, the people should have available whatever they have.
All right, so you, like, to put in perspective for you, like, so U.S. military uses an M4, you know, that's their standard rifle, 30-round magazine. Granted, it's fully auto. Used to be 3-round burst or semi-auto. Select fire. We can access that. Granted, we get the proper tax stamp and paperwork, you know, the whole legality side of it. But your standard average Joe is going to have a semi-auto version of that rifle, which is not exactly the same rifle. Two different rifles.
They're mechanically designed to be different. Like, there's a lot of people don't realize that, like, you know, an AR-15 and M16, while they quote-unquote look similar, there are actually some pretty significant design features that, again, that the average person doesn't realize. it's not out of the question though for someone to take something from military design, recycle parts of the design that obviously work in the construction of a civilian rifle.
So you have the framework of the look-alike, military style rifle with a revamped internals to make it civilian, semi-auto. So even at that, the civilians are at a severe disadvantage at that already, given same mag capacity, but the military can
hit that
can expel a much larger amount of rounds per minute,
and
really we're still at a disadvantage. Granted, the small percentage of people that do actually have the proper tax stamp to own a fully auto rifle, which is super expensive, and the process is lengthy.
But on that note, wouldn't you say that that's better because they are trained American citizens to use those weapons compared to just your average Joe who just maybe will take it outside and shoot it at someone in his backyard?
Yeah, but if your average Joe takes his time to educate himself, he can be just as good.
And so that goes back to the standing army thing, where that's their job is literally to use those weapons. That is their job. They're a standing army. They're in the military, and that is something that the founders actually were against doing. They didn't like the idea of a standing military because of the threat of tyranny that it provided. So because the military is run by the federal government, if the federal government decided, hey, let's go invade X tiny town in random state because we want to,
the military suddenly becomes an arm of that.
Now it's an arm of tyranny that the federal government is wielding as a sword against its people.
Well, the only thing about that is you have American citizens that are part of that, and you think they'll turn against their own?
Some of them.
I think some will.
Some of them will follow orders to the T.
From my experience, it's like anything else. I spent a little bit of time in the army, there is radicals on both sides. So you're gonna have radicals that are like these guys that are career military guys that are like, okay, well if I follow these orders, I want to get more rank. I'm
not going to be committing treason.
Yeah, there's severe penalties for disobeying an order. So in that instance, what are you going to do?
See, that's the point that separates people out, whether you really know which cause they're from. Because you think the founding fathers didn't think of that. It's like, oh wow, what I'm doing here is high treason. They bit into it, and they're like, that risk is worth what I want. The risk is worth my freedom.
The only downfall with that was you had the American colonists versus the Britons.
The
British. Yeah. So
the largest empire in the world at the time.
Yes, but in this sense, you would have Americans versus Americans.
Yeah, but the premise is still the same.
Well, see,
it's still people versus people.
If these people want to impose tyranny on us, then it doesn't matter where they're from. Tyranny is tyranny.
For the revolution, or like before that,
they're loyalists.
It was, when we were first seceding from Britain, America still technically wasn't quite a thing. So it was technically still British. So it was British versus British still. Yeah. So it's kind of the same idea.
We hadn't renounced our,
they were colonists, but
we hadn't renounced
the War of 1812 was Americans versus the British because America was truly founded then. But the stuff leading up to, with Washington being over in Valley Forge and stuff was pre-official founding of America. So he was technically still a British citizen. So he was British versus British. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Well played, sir.
So what do you think that the Boston Tea Party of this will set it all off?
I can't tell you what
election.
Oh god.
Oh no.
I don't know if we can talk about that. I don't know what it'll be. I'm pretty sure everyone will know when it is, though.
See, I don't think they knew. I don't think they thought the Boston Tea Party was going to be. I think they were just doing it to get the point across, and really,
it was a protest.
It was a protest. Yeah, a really polite protest if anybody actually looks at it. But I don't really think that they thought that would be the big kickoff. I think they thought like they were just doing a protest, just like anything else.
You're giving a middle finger to the man.
It really kind of exploded and was like, oh wow, this was the point that was like the start of it.
And that wasn't the only thing either. There was the Boston Massacre as well.
Well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that all happened in pretty rapid succession.
Yeah,
it's a snowballing effect.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like certain things have to happen for other things to happen to lead up to, you know, the all-out, you know, tyrannical war side of things.
Which none of us want.
Yeah, nobody wants that. It's almost where you just gotta hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Yeah, so we definitely don't want that, but this is kind of something that's a little bit out. Well, it definitely is 100% outside of our control and just kind of innately happens. And we're starting to see the parallels between what happened back then and what's happening now with the current events. I mean, all these mass riots, you know, people getting shot left and right.
Mostly peaceful protests.
Very peaceful.
Very
peaceful bricks.
The peaceful. Yeah, your peaceful pallets of bricks and peaceful fires. But.
Peaceful but fiery.
Peaceful but fiery protests, yeah. But
gotta stay warm somehow.
You gotta stay warm. But the idea is that, you know, you're starting to see all these parallels, and these people are like there's these two clear factions that are emerging. Or, you know, you just got I'd say not. There's of course there's more than just two, but the two main ones I'd say are just normal people that want to mind their own business, and then you got the people that I would just funnel in and call them the aggressors. Then, of course, you know, you got Antifa on the side, the Proud Boys, but all those ones are small enough compared to the size of the other ones.
Proud Boys aren't even, like, they're not Antifa.
Boys they're small.
Proud Boys are the others.
No, they're not.
No.
Well, why'd they go around and spray Antifa protesters with beer?
The Proud Boys are a right-wing group.
Yeah.
And the Antifa are a left-wing group.
Well, they're
I was saying size-wise.
Yeah. Temple talked to. Well, the thing is, the Proud Boys have actual leadership.
Absolutely, they have a defined hierarchy.
It's a rank structure.
They have a defined hierarchy, whereas Antifa is an idea, or basically anyone can throw on a black hoodie and a black mask and throw on the Antifa symbol on a plastic shield and be part of
It's
kind
of like
Antifa.
a Viet Cong almost sort of thing.
It's an insurgency, is what it is.
Correct.
So back to what I was saying, where you have all these different little groups that appear. The two main ones are like the normal people who want to have their own, just have their own lives, go about their own thing, and then you have the aggressors. And I think that there's a lot of tension. Well, I don't think, I guarantee there's a lot of tension building up, not only from, you know, all of the like there's all the shootings, there's all of the mostly peaceful protest riots, and another big thing too that I read a report on is that a lot of the anger and whatnot is fueled by all these lockdowns. So they are saying that, oh, you know, I'm protesting police brutality, I'm protesting yada yada yada, whatever it is, and in reality, a lot of that anger stems from not being able to go out to your favorite store anymore because it's closed because of these lockdowns, all the build up that just occurs. So they're projecting what they believe in against what their actual problems are. So like you see these two groups that are aggressing towards one another, and you can really just draw parallels from that to what caused the American
American dream.
No, that caused the revolution. You know, and anybody that sees it, you know, if this keeps going. Yeah, it's not just here. You can look and see. You know, French Revolution,
Communist Revolution in Russia.
Yeah, what happened in Germany in the 30s? What happened in Venezuela? All these are pretty. They all are pretty.
They follow the same lines.
Yeah, they're all pretty easy to see, and it just anybody can see that if this continues at the rate it's going, that it's not going to end anywhere good.
And it's definitely not getting better currently.
No, definitely not. I mean, that's what I was trying to make. I know it's kind of drawn out.
So, what laws would you say are infringement today? What do you consider infringement on the Second Amendment today?
In the classical form that it's written?
Well, like what laws would you say personally?
I would say modern day, like because this is the here and now.
Yeah, like what is infringement today? What do you define as infringement? Particular laws, rules?
Me in particular, I would say basically any law passed after 1934, after they started like the machine gun ban and whatnot, because before then people had the mostly same access to these type of firearms that the government had, which is what I read the Second Amendment as. So they were hard. Some of them were, you had to go through some loopholes to get, or you had to pay a lot for them. That's mostly how they gated people. Was they just cost a lot. So anything pre or anything post 1934 when they started banning machine guns, I feel the majority of those laws fall under unconstitutional, because to me, when I read it, shall not be infringed means literally you can't touch it.
Yeah, that's
because fringing is coming in from the sides, so they're just nipping away at it. That's my opinion.
And that's I totally agree with that, because like right now, as of since then, it's been basically death by 1,000 cuts. They've taken one thing away, another thing away, and we've been
allowing it to happen
because we're trying to please people, because we don't want any civil unrest. We want everybody to sort of come together and be in an agreement. But there's always somebody that comes along like, okay, well, this is something new now. You can't have this.
They always want more.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
You give them an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah.
Right, and I think the most recent we can notice on that one was with the ATF making a statement saying that the Honey Badger, which was an AR pistol platform by Q, is now considered an SBR, although it has a brace and looks exactly like any other AR pistol, right?
It follows the classical guidelines of a standardized AR pistol.
Right. So, is there anything different about that specific platform, the Honey Badger, that's different from the rest?
Well, they're also
the other AR pistol platforms.
There's also some stuff that came out from the ATF even more recently that they're coming after pistol braces again. Holistically, right. They want to come after pistol braces. They don't think they should be allowed, and they believe that pistol braces are just another way of making a short barrel rifle, which is complete dog and pony show. Because first of all, the ATF doesn't have the authority to change or
create policy.
Good.
What makes it illegal to own a short-barreled rifle? What is so bad about them that they had to ban a short-barreled rifle?
Concealability.
Yeah, like you said, it was concealability. If you had a trench coat or a larger duffel bag of some sort, you could really take that in anywhere. If I wear my my riding jacket, I could store an SBR underneath it. I mean, relatively easily, or if I had a 3/4 length, Western style jacket, you'd never know. You'd never know I had it on me.
You could fit a standard length AR underneath that.
The Gun Control Act, which is what made SBRs illegal, which came in the 1930s along with the machine gun ban and stuff like that. That came from the mobsters during that era. How basically the early 1900s, the mob just became more wealthy and more wealthy and more wealthy, that eventually Thompsons were not the first thing that ever showed up in the mob's hands. Thompsons were expensive.
Yeah, because before then they were buying military surplus.
It was one of the very first fully automatic submachine guns, and it could be concealed because it is a pistol caliber carbine, whatever you want to call it. And it could be concealed, and it was fully automatic, so they could do a lot of damage with them. So that also fell under with the suppressors for no reason, because suppressors were included in that ban for no reason.
Well, they were probably I wouldn't say for no reason. I think the suppressor thing, although I would argue not really used by the mob, I think that they kind of could see how that could be used by the mob.
But suppressor, even we look at suppressor technology now. Suppressors do not, contrary to popular belief, do not make the weapon silent.
They just get rid of the crack. Yeah,
it just gets if anything nowadays, it's more of a hearing protection.
Mm-hmm. It turns your 5.56 into sounding like a 22 or 22.
Well, that's the thing, though.
But you'll still hear it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, though. With having a suppressor, you have to run subsonic ammo. So in order to get the proper effect, you have to run the proper ammo. And for those people that don't know anything about firearms, with the going back to the pistol brace, the arm brace for these pistol ARs, what it is, it's where the stock used to be. It's designed to wrap around your forearm and has a Velcro strap or something of that nature to strap around to your forearms to help deal with the recoil.
To assist with firing from one hand, because the ATF's definition of a pistol is a firearm that is intended to be fired from one hand.
Then what's the difference between an SBR and a pistol AR?
The stock.
The stock itself, because it's not something that braces to your forearm. It's actually something
it's intended to be fired from the shoulder.
And with two hands.
And because the length is shorter than... So basically what makes a SBR an SBR is a rifle that has a barrel length less than 16 and a half. I think it's 16.
It's 16.
It's
I think it's 16 flat,
16 inches with a stock which is intended to be fired from the shoulder.
What's the difference between taking the stock off and then just using it like an SBR?
A felony or not?
Well, you can have the pistol brace on it, but most people can shoot them without having the brace up against your shoulder.
So the brace isn't a stock. The brace is a brace.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Most people can just fire it holding it out.
Congratulations, you've entered the gray zone.
Yeah, and that's
and that goes back to training and proper, etiquette with the firearm, where you just don't do that. Like, that's not proper safe. It's not safe. It's not really safe to do that, because one, you're not accurately, being able to get a proper sight picture and see exactly what you're shooting at, and you don't know exactly where that barrel's aimed. So you have a rogue round, it hits something that you're not intending to shoot, and it ricochets and, God forbid, hits somebody or destroys some property. There's some real, severe legality, backlash coming your way.
So, like, the difference between that and SBR is the SBR, you just put it up against your shoulder and shoot. So,
well, the SBR is strictly with barrel length and the stock and overall length of the gun. The firearm itself it has to be a certain length.
Okay. So pistols cannot have stocks, otherwise they become SBRs. And an SBR is basically defined as a rifle, which with like a traditional type stock, that has a barrel length less than 16 inches. You can go over that with, like, if you do like a bullpup, where the actual barrel goes back into the gun, so the whole gun itself is shorter, but the literal barrel length is still 16 inches.
And there's still an overall length. There is a requirement.
If it's 20, it's 20-something inches. I forget exactly.
I think it's 26 inches.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Then what's the difference between, like, owning that or owning, like, an AR pistol and then owning, like, say, like a COD gun, like a P90 that shoots like 5.7s?
Okay, so the P90 is the military version. The PS90 is the civilian version, where it has a longer barrel. The barrel is a 16-inch barrel, so it's not this stubby barrel that sticks out, just past the actual framework of the rifle. So the barrel actually sticks out probably another foot.
For that particular gun, it sticks out. It's pretty significant, yeah.
And that's how civilians are able to get weapons that look like the military style one, which would be the P90, is they have this 16-inch barrel that goes across. Or, like, a lot of people don't know that the M4's standard barrel length is 14.5 inches, and all the AR-15s that you buy from a store that are actual, like, rifle AR-15s are 16 inches. So there's, like, what, two and a half?
You say like 2 inches, just round it, yeah.
2 inches difference. So, like, to a trained eye, it looks a little different than what the actual military firearm is. But so there's that difference, and then a lot of people don't realize you can't put a vertical foregrip on pistols, and
they can't be 90-degree grips.
Yeah, they can't be straight up and down, but you can have angled foregrips.
Yeah.
Which, again, these are all very arbitrary rules that don't necessarily function.
These are people who these rules were defined by people who have never held the gun that they made the rule on.
Yeah, and
not like any other bureaucracy.
And onto magazine capacity.
Why do you need 30 rounds?
Because
I want 30 rounds.
Because the gun is intended to have 30 rounds.
But why do you need 30 rounds?
Because it's none of your
because
business.
Because the military has 30 rounds.
Yeah. The
military also has 10-round clips.
No,
really. They don't.
And they don't have clips. They have magazines.
Magazines. Sorry, magazines.
The only thing that would entail to a 10-round mag would be a designated marksman rifle, which would be for a squad marksman or, a spotter, somebody that's going along with a sniper that's a spotter, and most of the time they're carrying an M4 themselves. But a squad marksman typically carries an M14, which is a semi-auto 10 to 20 round magazine.
Standard
and those are standard magazines.
Yeah, standard capacity. They're not high capacity. Like a 30 round is not high capacity. That is standard capacity for an AR-15 style weapon. That is standard. Anything less will be low capacity. Anything higher would be a high capacity technically. But that being said, that doesn't change the function of the weapon. Just because regular people, like if you train for a week practicing with the firearm, you can reload the weapon in under 2 seconds. Every time.
I'd say normal people that aren't so inclined could easily get a reload under 3 seconds every single time. And that's from where the magazine's being held at, usually on like a carrier or even like your pocket even. And you can have the magazine dropped. You can have the last shot fired, realize it's empty, drop it, load the new mag in,
send the bolt.
Reload the weapon in whatever fashion. So like on an AR platform, you drop the bolt down and have the next round sent down range in under 3 seconds, like very easily. So even then, the magazine capacity argument falls apart, and it doesn't really. It's not like it's gonna help.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not gonna prevent any mass shootings or anything like that, because guess what? They're just gonna carry more of those 10-round magazines. It doesn't matter, and not even that. But mass shootings are not conducted with AR platform rifles in very small instances, and the mass majority of them are with pistols. The majority of school shootings and stuff have happened with pistols,
which most pistols stock carry right around that 10 mark. So I'd say like 7 to 12 is average for a stock pistol.
To note, not AR pistols.
These are
handguns. Just handguns.
Handguns.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, just standard handguns. Like your average 1911 holds 7 or 8. And then, like most SIG guns carry like what 12
between 10 to 15.
10 to 15
to 21 depending on whatever.
Yeah, but 21's an extreme case. So the point is, it's like, what the mass majority of people are already hold basically around that area, and pistol mags in general are easy to carry. You can throw 4 or 5 of them in your like a standard jean pocket, and just carry those around and reload them. So like, it doesn't deter anything. If someone is absolutely committed to cause some harm and do some heinous act, limiting the number of rounds in a magazine isn't going to do anything. They're just going to carry more magazines.
Absolutely.
So what does it say? There's how many, like 150 to 200,000 gun deaths in the United States every year.
I think it's 122,000.
And we already talked about how 60% of those...
Too much.
I think it's less than that, isn't it?
I think it's right around there. But 60% of that number are from suicides. And not mass shootings or anything. And trust me, none of us are happy or cool with mass shootings, but it again comes down to...
You have to look at the statistical reality of things.
And these gun control measures don't actually decrease crime.
But I think you're like a couple 100 times more likely to die from like heart disease per year than by shoot in a mass shooting. Like, it's significantly more likely. And people aren't doing anything to restrict spoons or force diets on people, because you can't do that, and they know it's not going to do anything. So,
in 2019, 15,292 people were fatally shot in the United States, excluding suicides.
Excluding
just 219 people, or you said 15,000.
15,292.
Yeah. Okay, so 15,000 out of that 200,000 people.
I was looking at the total number over the years.
The number sounds correct, but so how many of those are actual like homicide type things? Because let me rephrase that. How many of those are not gang violence related?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Cause I know the numbers of like things that happen in like New York, Chicago, Baltimore, like lower United States that are gang related crime. It accounts for a lot of that.
You can continue to cut these if you actually look into it and start cutting these statistics up that they like to scare people with, you will come to find that it's not what it seems like, and there isn't a massive gun problem in the United States. There just simply isn't.
Also want to mention those cities. Would you say New York City, Baltimore, Chicago? Aren't those cities technically gun-free zones?
Yeah, they are.
They are. Yeah,
and that's the and I think that begins with with the whole 2A problem with these gun-free cities where people have no way of defending themselves. What, like, I'm sorry, like, somebody, how are you going to defend yourself with somebody that has a gun, that knows that they're not supposed to have a gun?
And knows that you don't have a gun because you're a law-abiding citizen and they want to come and mug you.
Yeah, so...
I don't think we need to beat the dead horse too much on this one. I mean, we already went over the whole gun-free zone thing. If it says gun-free zone, obviously
it's an easier target.
Easy target, right? Exactly.
So I did some research here. So if you were to look at the data provided by the FBI in homicides related to guns, if you were to take them down an average between the year 2007 and 2017 per year, homicides per rifle, not just AR pattern rifles or any other assault style rifles, total rifle deaths per year. What do you think the number is? Two.
I'm gonna say
just
150.
It's more than that.
I'm gonna go with specifically 768.
That's a really specific number, but no, it's about half that. So 340 homicides per year on average between 2007 and 2017, according to the FBI.
And you know what that means? If we banned those assault-style weapons, that means that 340 people would have shot themselves with something else.
Or jumped. Yeah, really. Like, the thing...
that's classifying rifles, so these are your hunting.
Oh, I'm
rifles.
sorry. I'm sorry. My mistake.
So let's see here. In 2019, 257 people died from plane crashes, and in 2018, 534 people died in plane crashes. So if you were to average those two numbers together, you are actually statistically more likely to die in a plane crash, which is the safest method of travel by a long shot. You are more likely to die in a plane crash by several percent than being shot with any type of rifle.
So were those deaths, was that suicides?
No. Suicide?
No, it does not include suicides. Because I think they always use the suicides to overinflate the number. If someone is going to the point of killing themselves, they're probably going to do it some other way, in most cases.
Total deaths as of last year was 37,603. Suicide was 22,926 of those. That's 61%.
Yeah, that's about what it is on average. Yeah, like 50 to 60% roughly.
Yeah, homicide is around 36%. Police shootings are around 1.4%.
And that tells me that there isn't a gun problem in the United States. There's a mental health problem in the United States.
Correct.
That is something.
And then you look at these mass shooters. There's a common factor with a lot of them that they have SSRIs, which is the antidepressants and stuff like medication for mental illnesses. Now, whether these people had these rifles and whatnot obtained before this illness or this,
most of the time they're not even their rifles.
Yeah, or they obtained them from somebody else. So it's not even, and like we said before, it's not the rifle or the pistol or it's not the tool's fault. It is a people problem. It is a mental people problem where people have a serious disconnect with what is going on in reality, and they feel that there's no way out, and they lash out in these horrific ways to try and make kind of a stance on something and get attention to where they're they get I don't know, Daddy didn't love them,
So just another thing, going back to my statistic about how airplanes are more deadly than that. So on average, 1.35 million people die every year related to car accidents. When you boil that down, that's 3,700 people per day. So you are 10 times more likely every day. So there are 10 times as many deaths per day due to car accidents than there are rifle-related homicide incidents every year.
Fuck it, let's ban cars.
Yeah. Are we banning motor vehicles? And that's not including the 5.5 million people that are hurt every year related to car accidents.
California's banning motor vehicles.
No,
We're not gonna talk about California.
Sorry, 5.5 was the total amount of crashes. 2.3 million are how many people are hurt in one way or another.
And then you look at how the obesity rate and how many people die from heart failure.
That's what I said. 600,000 people a year on average die from heart-related issues.
And you can't take away people's food, because people are going to eat whatever they want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop it. That would be an infringement on people's rights.
Yeah, we can probably continue to throw out
we can throw
statistics that just completely disprove.
People are afraid of statistics.
Gun control, and they'll just call us racist, and it'll be fine. But I think that's a good place to end this podcast. Again, I'd like to thank Skyscraper and Blackbeard for coming on. We may have them on much more, or many more times.
Whoop, whoop.
Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to add?
Know your rights.
Know your rights.
Defend your rights.
Be a decent human being. Help one another.
Stand your ground.
Yeah, I think we got everything.
Good
All right,
show.
we'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.